The moment the hospital called my parents was supposed to be the moment someone came running. But no one did. I remember waking up on that sterile bed, the harsh fluorescent lights burning my eyes, my body aching in ways I didn't think possible, and realizing that instead of my parents' worried faces, my phone was buzzing with a notification my sister had tagged me on social media, laughing at a meme. That was when it hit me. The people I trusted most, the ones who were supposed to protect me, had already chosen their side. And that's why I'm finally telling this story. Before I begin, if you've ever been betrayed, I hope you stay with me till the end. And please like and subscribe. Your support truly means more than you know. I collapsed at work that day, completely drained from exhaustion that I had tried to ignore for months. The doctors told me I had pushed my body too far. My blood pressure was sky high. My heart was racing. They insisted on calling my emergency contacts, and I assumed naively that my parents would be there in minutes. They were always there, or so I thought. But when I came to, hours later, no one was beside me. No warm voice whispering encouragement, no gentle hand holding mine. Just silence and the relentless beeping of the machines. And then I saw it, a flood of notifications. My sister had posted photos from a party, tagging everyone I knew. Her captions dripping with inside jokes I wasn't part of. I scrolled numbly, every tag and comment twisting like a knife. Each one a reminder that my existence had been reduced to an afterthought. Growing up, I had always been the responsible one. The daughter who stayed home when she was sick, who made sure bills were paid, homework was done, and family obligations were met. I was the invisible backbone of a family that never acknowledged me, the one whose sacrifices went unnoticed. I had believed that love came with consistency, that family would show up when it mattered. That belief shattered that day with the ping of a notification, and the stark realization that loyalty was a currency I had overpaid for. I tried calling my parents. Their phones went straight to voicemail. I left messages. I begged silently through texts that went unanswered. Hours passed. Every minute felt like a lifetime. Each missed call was a confirmation that I was not just invisible, I was irrelevant. My sister, the one I thought would at least check in, had already decided I wasn't worth her concern. And yet, the way she flaunted her laugh online, tagging me mockingly, told me everything I needed to know. She didn't just ignore me. She enjoyed my absence. As I lay in that hospital bed, I realized betrayal could be subtle. It didn't always arrive with accusations or confrontations. Sometimes it arrived quietly, in apathy and in laughter that excluded you. Sometimes it arrived in the very people you love the most, who were supposed to shield you from the world. I had spent my life being careful, being responsible, being unnoticed. And now, being ignored and mocked was the cruelest lesson I had ever learned. That night, after the nurses had gone, after the room fell silent except for my labored breathing, I made a decision. I would stop being invisible. I would stop being the one who silently carried the weight of their world without recognition. I would stop allowing my life, my health, and my dignity to be treated as expendable. This wasn't about anger. It wasn't about revenge in the way people imagine it. It was about claiming the respect and care I had been denied for far too long. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I knew it would require patience, strategy, and above all, silence, a quiet, relentless form of justice that they would never see coming. But as I stared at the ceiling that night, every missed call and every mocking social media tag felt like fuel. Fuel for the transformation I was about to undertake. A metamorphosis from the invisible caretaker into someone who mattered first, who prioritized herself, and who would never again let betrayal go unanswered. And just when I thought the night couldn't get heavier, my phone buzzed again. Another notification from my sister. Another tag. This one was different, a challenge, almost a taunt. She wanted to see how I would respond. But this time, I wouldn't. Not yet, because the story was only beginning. Asterisk after that night in the hospital, everything changed, though nothing seemed to on the surface. I walked out with my own defeat, carrying bruises that no one could see, not just on my body, but on my trust, on my heart. Each step felt heavier than the last because I realized betrayal didn't leave scars. That healed quickly. It lingered quietly, reshaping the way you move through the world. Before I begin, if you've ever been betrayed, I hope you stay with me till the end. And please like and subscribe. Your support truly means more than you know. The first few days after I left the hospital were surreal. The world continued to spin, my colleagues smiled, the office buzzed. And yet my entire family had vanished from my reality. Not a call, not a message, not even a single apology. My sister's social media posts continued like a rhythmic reminder. I was the one they had left behind and she was reveling in it. I realized then that the only thing left for me to do was reclaim myself. Not in fury, not in shouting, but in silence. The quiet kind of revenge that doesn't humiliate, that doesn't escalate violence. That simply dismantles the illusion they had built around me that I was dependent, fragile, replaceable. I started small. I cut the invisible strings I didn't even realize I was still holding. Bills I had been paying for family members quietly. The emergency funds I had been providing for just-in-case scenarios. The tasks I had taken on because someone had to do it, all of it ended. I didn't announce it. I didn't argue. I simply stopped. And the consequences were immediate. The phone calls began, frantic, demanding, panicked. My sister's voice was the first I heard. She tried to mask fear with anger, asking why the electricity hadn't been paid, why the utilities were disconnected, why she felt suddenly unmoored in a world that had been supported by me silently. I listened. I didn't respond, and I watched, because this is where silent revenge begins, in observation. In letting those who have taken you for granted experience a fraction of the chaos you have been forced to navigate while carrying their burdens. It wasn't about punishment. It was about truth. About letting them feel what they had ignored for years. Then came the messages. Hidden resentment spilling over. My mother tried manipulation, invoking nostalgia, weaving memories into guilt trips. She reminded me of birthdays I had forgotten to call, minor mistakes I had made years ago. She painted me as ungrateful, dramatic, self-centered. My sister tagged me in new posts, subtler now, trying to bait me, and still, I stayed silent. During this time, I focused on myself. Therapy, reading, journaling, anything that would help me untangle the emotional knots my family had tightened around me over decades. For the first time, I allowed myself to grieve without interruption, to breathe without being questioned, to exist without guilt. Weeks later, the first real breakthrough came unexpectedly. I discovered evidence that they had been relying on me in ways they had never admitted, and not just financially. My name was linked to documents, accounts, and agreements I had signed years ago. Trusting their guidance, I had unknowingly granted them authority over things they used against me, always under the guise of family trust. With that knowledge, I felt something powerful: control. Not vengeance in the conventional sense, but the ability to step out of the role they had written for me, to finally claim my agency. When I told my sister I was no longer covering anything silently, through actions rather than words, the reaction was immediate. Angry messages, late-night calls, attempts at persuasion, even threats disguised as concern. And yet, the calmness in me grew. I no longer needed to justify my worth. I no longer needed to validate their existence through my labor or patience. Then came the moment I realized the full extent of their betrayal. My parents had not come to the hospital because they had assumed I would survive, yes, but also because my sister had painted the narrative for them. She had convinced them I was exaggerating, that I was dramatic, that my collapse was a spectacle to gain attention. And they believed her. Just like that, my truth had been erased, my suffering dismissed, and my existence reduced to a story controlled by someone else. I understood something crucial then. The true power of silent revenge isn't punishment. It's independence. It's self-worth. It's letting them live in a world where their assumptions no longer hold sway over your life. And yet, the story wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because my sister, clever and arrogant, thought she had one. She didn't realize that I was already rewriting the rules quietly, invisibly, strategically. Every decision I made, every boundary I enforced, every step I took toward my own freedom was a subtle message they would never anticipate. Until it was too late, weeks later, the first sign of real consequence appeared, an overdue notice that they had assumed I would handle. Another missed bill, another panicked message. I watched, impassive, as the illusion of control crumbled. Not triumphantly, not vengefully, just as a fact they could no longer ignore. And then, my sister made her first real mistake. A careless message meant to shame me, sent to the wrong person. Suddenly, the narrative she had controlled for so long began to unravel. I smiled quietly to myself. Sitting in my apartment, watching the threads of deceit they had woven start to fray. This was just the beginning. Months had passed since that collapse at work. My body had healed, but the scars inside my chest remained, quiet reminders of betrayal, neglect, and the loneliness that had shaped me. And yet, for the first time in my life, that loneliness felt like freedom. A strange, quiet freedom that came from finally no longer being someone else's safety net. Before I begin, if you've ever felt abandoned by the people you trusted most, stay with me till the end. And please like and subscribe. Your support truly means more than you know. The subtle shifts I had begun in part 2, cutting ties with unpaid bills. Letting responsibilities they assumed I'd carry collapse had begun to show results. My sister's carefully constructed world started to wobble. A late notice here, an angry call there. A confrontation with my parents about something they had taken for granted. And every time, I remained silent, watching them struggle not with anger, but with disbelief. It wasn't about hurting them. It was about letting them face reality without me propping it up. They had assumed I was disposable, replaceable, and unworthy of respect. IWAS and single quotes T. Then came the pivotal day, Thanksgiving. A day they had used for years to assert their control. To make me feel small in the shadow of family celebrations. This year, I didn't answer a single call. I didn't show up. I didn't even consider it. And the quiet, haunting beauty of that decision wasn't immediately visible to them. But it radiated in the small details, empty chairs at the table, overdue payments they thought I'd handle, subtle shifts in conversations as they realized the strings they had always pulled had vanished. I began to build my life on my own terms. I rented my own apartment, invested in things I loved, and pursued opportunities my family had always dismissed as frivolous or impractical. I rediscovered friendships I had ignored to maintain family harmony, and I allowed myself to experience joy without guilt. Each small success was a quiet statement I could thrive without their validation. Months later, my sister reached out. Her tone was different, hesitant, even afraid. She didn't ask me to cover anything. She didn't tag me in posts or mock me. She simply wanted to talk. I listened calmly. I acknowledged her words without apology, without explanation. She was forced to confront her own actions, her own manipulations, without me offering excuses or justifications. And that was the essence of my silent revenge, not confrontation, not humiliation, not dramatic displays, just independence, just being untouchable by the chains they had tried to bind me with. My parents eventually reached out, voices trembling, words coated in regret. But I had already changed the story of my life. Their apology didn't undo years of neglect, but it also didn't shake me. I had learned that my worth was not defined by their recognition. The final piece of closure came quietly. My sister sent a message, a small, reluctant acknowledgement of her mistakes. I didn't respond immediately. I waited. And in that waiting, I realized the true power of my journey. It wasn't revenge in the traditional sense. It was a reclamation of myself. The betrayal had been devastating. The silence had been deafening. But the peace that followed, the reclamation of my life and my boundaries, was intoxicating. I had learned that sometimes the most profound revenge is not shouting. Not dramatic retaliation, but quietly, persistently. Living a life they cannot control. And in that quiet life, I finally found what I had been searching for all along: self-worth, respect, and the freedom to exist without apology.